I did my PhD studies in Buffalo, and I was very fortunate to choose an area that actually in the early 80s, it was what AI is today. It was like a revolution in the area of technology. It was digital signal processing. So the whole world was going from analog to digital.
Welcome to a new episode of Most Memorable Journeys. I have a very precious guest today, and I'm really excited to be able to do this recording. He is a past president of the University of South California. He is an author of a book called American Trojan. He is so many things. He has inspired countless students, academics, and leaders. And he is my husband's distant cousin. Welcome to Most Memorable Journeys, Dr. Max Nikias.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's a pleasure.
It's so fascinating how you and I got together. Because or Hector, my husband, read an article in a local newspaper in the Gatimerini about you. And I said, Nikias, he must be related to us. And I said, I'm going to find this man. And I got on LinkedIn, and Hector said, he's never going to reply to you. And you instantly did. And I'm so glad you did. So you were born in Cyprus.
Yes, I was born in the village of Komikebir in the Karpas Peninsula, which is north of Famagusta, about 25 miles. That's where I was born in the early 50s, 1952. And I grew up, I lived in the village up to the age, I think I was 9 years old. In the early 60s, my family, they moved to Famagusta. And because that was the beginning of the tourist boom of Famagusta, with the building of a lot of hotels. And for my father, who was a carpenter, there were many job opportunities doing all the carpentry work for the hotels. And that's why we moved to Famagusta. And which, of course, was an eye-opener for me, just a little kid from the village, moving to Famagusta and living in Famagusta. But it's I lived in Cyprus the first 20 years of my life. I also, after I graduated from the gymnasium of Famagusta, I had to do my military service for 2 years. And then I went to Athens for undergraduate studies at the Vetsovion Polytechnic.
So Komikebir was a small village. I know where it is. I've been there. And for the people who are listening, because I have a lot of people listening to my podcast who are not in Cyprus.
Right.
This part of Cyprus is occupied by the Turkish army today. And that's going to be our next thing. But I can imagine for a little boy from Komikebir coming to Famagusta, because Famagusta was fancy at the time. Famagusta was stars came to holiday in Famagusta. So that must have been quite a step.
Yes, it was quite a step. And I do remember where a number of stars came to Famagusta, from Elizabeth Taylor to Paul Newman to Richard Burton, and even Greek movie stars who come to Famagusta. I talk about that a little bit in my book, and I I have to say I share some experiences, especially my first year at the elementary school in Famagusta, that I found the kids in Famagusta, the city kids, to be much more aggressive. And I was very shy. In class, and they were very, very aggressive. So it took me about a year to adjust to that, I have to admit to it. Because growing up in Komikebir, I was going to an elementary school that we had one teacher only for 3 grades. So in one classroom, there were three grades: the first, the third, and the fifth. And in the other classroom was the second, the fourth, and the sixth grade of elementary school. So you can imagine it was a big change that I really had to adjust, and it took me a little bit. It took me a little bit of time to adjust.
I think you adjusted well. Look at you now.
Yeah.
So you finished school, you went to the gymnasium, you went to the army, which at the time I can imagine must have been 26 months or something.
No, it
It's
was
been
24
reviewed.
months. It was a 24
24
months
months.
military service. And I was fortunate enough. I was picked as one of because I guess I was a good student at high school. I was picked as one of the 40 Cypriots that we were sent to a military school in Heraklion, on the island of Crete, for military training to become, eventually you become a reserve officer and then a second lieutenant. So it was a great experience for me. It was there for 6 months. I have a whole chapter in the book about that experience. Looking back, Elizabeth, I have to say I really learned a lot of leadership lessons that served me well in life from that experience.
That's fascinating.
You learn
And
about, strategies. You learn the
yeah,
importance of execution. You learn about that you have to have goals, and how are you going to achieve them? How do you plan for it? And of course, the other thing you learn is that most of the time nothing works out the way you plan it.
yeah,
Therefore, it's how you react to the unexpected.
yeah, absolutely. You learn to improvise.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so then you went to Athens, because at the time there was no university in Cyprus. And I think the next best thing was Greece. And you went and studied engineering.
That's right. And actually, I had a full scholarship to study at the Metsovion Polytechnic, which I believe to this day is still a very selective school. So for any student for us that was good in math and in the sciences, that was the place to go if you could get in and pass the entrance exams at that time. And I did. And I ended up getting also a 5-year scholarship, which was covering my living expenses in Athens. It was a lot of hard work. It was a very, very competitive environment. But again, I loved every minute of it. And it was an eye opener for me. Even, yes, Famagusta was a booming city, right? But when you go to Athens, you are in the eye of Hellenism. Mm-hmm. And you are surrounded by history. And I always loved history, and I loved theater. And at that time, Athens was full of different playhouses and theaters, from the very well-established ones to the experimental ones. And it became a habit for me to almost every week or every other week, I would go and see a play. And I loved it. Yeah, it was the culture of Athens at that time. It was just wonderful, very educational.
So you said you were born in 52. So when you were 22 years old, you were in Athens, I would imagine, and you found out in the news, I would imagine,
right,
that the Famagusta or the north of Cyprus had been invaded.
Right. Actually, what happened, I was planning with what became my wife, Nikki. We were going back to Cyprus for the summer because she was also pursuing her studies in Athens, studying accounting. And we had a relationship, but of course our parents suspected we did, but we didn't want the two families to meet at the airport, that we flew together to Cyprus. And she ended up going the 14th of July to Cyprus, which was Sunday. And I was scheduled to go the next day, Monday, the 15th. She made it to Cyprus. I didn't, because then it was a military coup against President Makarios. So all the airports were closed. And that's how I ended up finding myself being in Athens. And yes, I describe in my book the experience I went through the evening that Famagusta fell to the Turks. And I found myself walking in the streets of Athens alone. And on the one hand, Greece was celebrating the return to democracy. And then at the same time, the mixed feelings that I lost part of my country.
Mm-hmm.
And so those were the mixed feelings. And what I tell people today, for each one of us, we can go and point to certain dates in our calendar where you can say those were turning points, because that date, this is what was before, and this is what came after that date.
Yeah.
And for me, on my calendar, there is only one date. It was in August of 1974. And after that, there was no going back. It was a shocking event. It was an experience that was totally unexpected, even back then. In spite of the fact that Turkey invaded the island on July 20th, still nobody believed it, that Famagusta was going to fall to the Turks. And for me, it was a life-changing moment. Because once you lose everything, and it happened not just to me and my family, it happened to more than 250,000 compatriots in Cyprus that became refugees. But once you lose everything, your family property, your possessions, the businesses that your family built, and even the land that was inherited through generations, right? Even the albums, everything was on paper, the photos. You had your memories for the first 20, 22 years of your life. There's no going back. It's only then that I realized for the first time the meaning of the Greek word apatris, which means stateless. That's how I felt. But also, I have to say, Elizabeth, that experience, looking back, it also had the seeds, although it was a tragedy, it also had the seeds to the opposite. That it gave us endurance, it gave us a resilience, it gave us an awareness of our vulnerabilities as human beings. One of the lessons I learned from that experience is that you never, ever take anything for granted. Anything you possess today, you may lose it tomorrow to forces totally unexpected, and you have no control over them. So, which means that for the rest of your life, you never get too comfortable. You always worry that if things are going to work out or not. And it makes you much more alert when you have that feeling. And especially when you get into leadership positions, you always worry. You have that worry how things are going to work out. So anyway, so those are some of the feelings, and I think the lessons learned and experiences that I really got out of what you may call the refugee experience.
So would you have gone back to Cyprus if that hadn't happened? Were you planning to go to the US before?
No, actually, yeah, that's a good question. My plan was very simple. We're going to get married with Nikki, I was going to get my engineering degree, her accounting degree, and go back to Cyprus. That was our
Hmm.
plan. That was our
Yeah.
vision for our life, for the future. And the summer of 74 really changed everything. Uh, in Christmas of 74, I went back to Cyprus with Nikki to get engaged. We decided to get engaged. And that was the first time I faced the tragedy with my own eyes, where the majority of the refugees of that time, they were in camps, in tents,
Yeah, intense.
and it
Yeah.
was very cold and it was
Hmm.
raining all the time,
Hmm.
remember? And actually, I got sick as soon as we arrived. Uh, and uh, uh, and my father, I'll never forget it. Uh, that expression of sorrow that I don't believe ever left him.
Yeah.
Uh, he did say to me, why don't you go for graduate studies to America?
Hmm.
That was that was his advice, and that was the only gift that he could have given me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And you did.
And I did. Yeah, I took
And
it
you did.
seriously and I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And how hard, I mean, I was a tour guide for many years, so I have gone to many places and I had to start, from scratch, but I
Right.
had accommodation and a car when I went to a place. But for somebody who just goes with that, it's hard to adjust, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's there are no guarantees that things are going to work out. And as I explain it in my book, I asked the question, actually now writing the book, what did we know about America when we came in 1979? What did we know about America? Actually, almost nothing, very little.
Yeah.
It was from the movies, from reading some newspapers, even to find out where the University of Buffalo was, where that offered me a full scholarship to come to America. I had to go to the library and look at the map of the United States and see where Buffalo was. There was no internet, there was no web. You
Hmm.
couldn't any information you needed. You have to go to the library. So in reality, I knew very little and almost nothing about America. The very first
Amazing.
thing that surprised me, even at JFK Airport in New York City when we arrived, you could get a refill of your coffee for free, which of
I
course
know.
you never do in Europe.
Oh, no, no. It's funny what you're saying, because you're saying that you had to go and look on a map where Buffalo is. When I was told to go to Cyprus as a tour guide, I had to go and look on a map where Cyprus is.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
It's so amazing in our lifetime, how things have developed and changed. It's absolutely crazy.
Exactly, exactly. But of course, we always need to remember, and I tell that to my students over the years, technological innovation has advanced enormously and is changing the way we access information, the way we communicate, the way we interact with each other. It changes transportation, it changes so many things in our everyday lifestyle. But one thing that doesn't change is human nature.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
why I'm a very strong, it has been one of the pillars to lean on for me is the Greek classics and all the wisdom that you can derive from the Greek classics because human
Fascinating.
nature hasn't changed.
Yeah, and I think no matter how much artificial intelligence will have, emotional intelligence will always be important.
Right, right. The human intelligence and the emotions of the of the human body will always be important.
So, how did you end up from Buffalo in California? Was there something in between, or did
Oh
did
yeah,
you?
there were there were actually two more universities between before coming to California. I did my PhD studies in Buffalo, And I was very fortunate to choose an area that actually in the early 80s, it was what AI is today. It was like a revolution in the
Yeah.
area of technology. It was digital signal processing. So the whole world was going from analog to digital. And I was in the midst of it as one that was one of the topics of my PhD thesis. So I started my career after I got my PhD at the University of Connecticut. I think the reader in my book will find amusing. I have a story how I went about to get my H-1 visa in order to work in the United States, and it wasn't easy.
Imagine.
But the fact that I was hired by the University of Connecticut to introduce this new area, which was so exciting. They didn't have any other professor to do it. And they also gave me the assignment to teach a course in that area to scientists and engineers of the United States Navy in New London, Connecticut, which was a submarine base for the Navy. So, cut the long story short, I ended up getting my H-1 visa very quickly because that was important to the United States Navy that I teach that course. So, and nothing changed since then in many ways because my technical work throughout my career with a lot of grants and PhD students, I did a lot of work for the United States Navy in sonar radar and communication problems, and also the United States government before getting into academic leadership positions.
Mm.
But anyway, I built out my career in this area, and at some point, USC came after me to recruit me because I was I was very well funded. I had 5 different research grants. I had 12 PhD students in my own group when USC recruited me in 1991.
Mm-hmm. Listen, I want to talk about this. We talked about it before we started recording because you mentioned your PhD studies now, and that's when your name changed because your name is Chrysostomos, which for me is very easy to pronounce because I speak Greek, but many people would not be able. So tell us how that happened.
Well, when we came to America, I went to have my very first meeting with my PhD thesis advisor. His name was Peter Scott. And I was going to meet him for the first time. So we get into his office, and the very first thing he tells me is, I cannot pronounce your first name. What do they call you? Is it this name, or they were calling you something else when you're growing up as a kid? And I said, they would also call me Makis. And Chrysostomos, Chrysostomakis, Makis. And he says, nah, that's kind of too feminine. What about Max? Has a punch into it. And I said, okay. And actually, I liked it.
And you got used to it.
Yeah, I got used to it. But I have to say one thing, though, Elizabeth, is my nickname. I use it everywhere. However, in all legal documents, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Passports, IDs, driver's licenses, any legal document of ownership, whatever, I don't use the Max.
Yeah.
In everything else, I do.
Interesting. You were saying before about collaborating with the government, with the Navy, because when we saw this newspaper article, we saw pictures of you with every possible president of the United States. Is that the reason why?
No. At the University of Southern California, when I was president of the university, I had invited a number of presidents or former presidents of the United States to come and speak on campus, and that's why
I
I have
see.
those photos. When I was president, President Obama came and spoke, and actually he came twice. Then I had invited also, because I was always very careful, at least on the president's, USC president's distinguished lecture series. I want it to be always balanced, that you invite a Democrat president. I want to invite also a Republican, just to be balanced, because that's very important on a university campus. And so I also invited George W. Bush with his wife, that they came and spoke. I invited Bill Clinton, who came. David Cameron, the Prime Minister of the UK, who paid us a visit. And then, because he studied at USC, Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, the late Shinzo Abe, who was unfortunately assassinated, a wonderful man, with his wife, when they visited the United States, he wanted to come and visit the campus because he had beautiful memories when he was a student. And then he invited me to go to Tokyo, which I did, and I had a meeting with him in his office. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now the book. You still teach though, don't you? You were saying
Yes,
before.
I teach at USC in the engineering school. Actually, I teach a course on leadership. I teach a course in the area of disruptive technologies with an entrepreneurial mindset. And I have introduced a new course that I have a lot of fun teaching, AI ethics. Because I think it's very important for students, and especially engineering students, to have some good understanding of ethics. And hopefully they bring those values into their design process for AI systems. But the book, I wrote it after I decided to write it after I stepped down as president. And during the COVID lockdown, I found myself having a lot of time on my hands. And that's when I decided to write the book. And it's called American Trojan. The title was suggested to me, and I liked it, by General David Petraeus, who read an earlier manuscript of the book, and he gave me a number of suggestions. But then he said, "You have the wrong title. You are the American Trojan," because the mascot of USC is the Trojan warrior. And yes, and then so all the graduates of USC are called the Trojan family. And then General Petraeus says to me, "You came to America, Max, but you did not remain Greek Cypriot. You became American. So you are the American Trojan." And my publisher,
I think you're a good mixture of both.
Yes, and my publisher loved the title, and it is available, will be available, the book, in Cyprus at the Solonian bookstore in Nicosia. I know they opened.
I haven't read it because you told me that you will be here, I think, in October.
Correct. Yeah, we're going to have a big book event in Nicosia on October 15th.
Yeah, so for those people who are listening from Cyprus, this is where you're going to have to go on the 15th of October at the Solonian bookstore in Nicosia.
No, actually, it's going to be at a different setting, but the Solonian will be there selling the book.
Okay, all right. Well, we will find out where it is, and I'm sure people. Right. Things are easy here, you know.
That is correct.
The Bush telephone works. It doesn't. Everybody knows everything about everyone.
Yeah, but my book has been endorsed with excellent reviews, not only by General Petraeus, but also by Arnold Schwarzenegger, the former governor of California and movie actor. by Robert O'Brien, the former National Security Advisor of the White House, and by Victor Davis Hanson, a very well-known Greek classicist, and also by three leaders of Greek American organizations, the National Hellenic Association, Art Dimopoulos, and Zevenidis. I know a lot of people know him in Cyprus. And Kyriakos Papastylianou, who is the president of the Federation of Cypriot American Organizations. They also endorsed my book with nice.
Excellent. Now we're already far in, we're getting towards the end, but I want to ask you a very important question. What does Cyprus mean to you?
Oh, Cyprus is the place I am who I am today based on all the experiences and life that I lived in Cyprus, in Greece, and United States. And that's why writing this book, I was debating how should I approach it? Do I only talk about Cyprus in my early years? Or do I only talk about my leadership experiences at USC? Or do I only talk about how to renew American higher education given the crisis we are in? But then I realized they are all interconnected. And I am who I am because of all those experiences. And that's why I decided to write it in a form of a memoir. And Cyprus in many ways gave me the foundation to become of who I am today.
And your family, do you come to Cyprus once in a while?
Yes, we do. Actually, the last 5-6 years, we come more often than before. My wife and I, we have 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren. So even when our daughters were growing up, we will bring them to Cyprus to meet all the extended family. And of course, when our parents were alive. And we did take our daughters to the occupied part a few times just to see the places where we grew up. Although, as you know, it's very depressing when you do that to this date. But we do come. Now I find myself coming to Cyprus at least a few times a year.
Good. And apart from Cyprus, which is obviously in your heart, do you have another place in the world that you like a lot? What is your favorite place?
Yeah, my favorite place is Athens in Greece.
What's there not to love?
That's my favorite place. And every time I see the Acropolis, and actually any restaurant friends want to take me, they know me already that there has to be a place where we have a view of the Acropolis in the evening. And because that's what you admire, the vision of Pericles 2,500 years ago. It's all in Thucydides in the funeral oration of Pericles. He knew what he was doing. And the future generations will be wondered at us with all these monuments. And he was absolutely right. So I love history. I love the Greek classical history. But Athens, to me, is the eye of Hellenism. And that's my favorite place.
I think this is a perfect ending to this podcast episode. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on Most Memorable Journeys today, Dr. Max Nikias.
Thank you for having me.
If you enjoy my podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You will find all the information in the show notes.